This is the Horse Radio Network.
This is episode 1070 of Horse Tip Daily. A different horse tip, a different equine topic, a different equestrian expert every day. Horse Tip Daily brings the world of equine knowledge to you, one day at a time. Greetings, horse people. Coach Jen here, and thanks for tuning in to Horse Tip Daily. Today's tip is an interview that Glenn the Geek did with Dr. Elfson from Bimeda Equine, where they have a chat about why it's important to read product labels and why FDA approvals matter on the dewormer you choose.
Well, Glenn here with the Horse Radio Network, and I have Dr. Elfson with us, and he is Director of Technical Services with Bimeda Incorporated. And, well, so we're talking about dewormers. We did the first part last month on the shows, and I'm sure everybody heard that, and we're doing a second part. And today we're talking about product labeling and FDA approvals. So you go into the tack shop or you're online, what can you learn from the product labels of all these different dewormers out there?
Well, it's really interesting how few people actually read a label, and I guess we're all kind of guilty of that in different aspects of our life, where we don't want to read directions. We just want to use something. But what you can learn from looking at the label is what that product has been approved for and which parasites it will control. Not all the products on the market are approved for all of the essential parasites. And it's really important also to look at what weight of animal can be treated with that tube of dewormer that you're picking up. Some are 1,250 pounds, and others, like Equimax, are 1,320 pounds. So there's differences from that standpoint. And also there's a safety profile that you're going to see. Is the product approved for pregnant or lactating mares? Is it approved for breeding stallions? How young can a foal be when it's started on that product? That's all going to be listed on those labels.
And I have seen people, you talk about the weight, and I have seen people with ponies just squirt the whole tube in and not, and then say, don't worry about that. Isn't it important not to give them too much, too?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Some of the products on the market do not have a very wide margin of safety. In some cases, there's a narrow range between the efficacious dose and the toxic dose. So, it's very important to have an accurate weight, and it's very important to give the amount of product that's required. And it's also important not to underdose, because then you're getting into an area that we'll probably talk in the future called resistance. You're more likely to develop resistance on your farm or ranch if you're underdosing your animals.
Let's talk a little bit about that now. Talk about resistance.
Resistance is something that we've been talking about in veterinary medicine, especially on the equine side, for the last 5 to 10 years, and it's been a real concern for us with equine antiparasitical. Every time we deworm our horses, we are essentially selecting for parasites that are resistant to that particular active ingredient in that dewormer that we're using. So the more often we deworm, the greater the opportunity for resistance to develop. So we've really now taken on a targeted approach to deworming, where we're identifying horses by their ability or propensity to shed eggs. And we know there's basically 3 groups: low shedders, medium shedders, and high shedders. We know that 80% of the horses out there are going to be low shedders, and then there's a 20% out there that will be those high shedders. And those are really the horses that we concentrate on. And we make sure that we have a very solid deworming program to limit the amount of eggs that they're seeding down our pastures with.
Well, how do you know if a product is working? How do I know if I'm using a wormer that it is actually working?
It's another great question. A lot of people just wing it. They just sort of, pick a pretty box off the shelf or go with something that maybe their friends have told them about. But there really is a well-grounded scientific method that can be used that's easy to do, on any farm or ranch. And what we do is the day that we administer the dewormer, we get a fecal sample from that particular horse or group of horses, and then we check the fecal egg count for that horse. And that's going to be expressed in eggs per gram of fecal material. That's done in a special counting chamber, and in any veterinary clinic can conduct that test. We come back 2 weeks later after the dewormer has been administered, and we get another fecal sample from those individual horses, and we do a fecal egg count test again. And we compare the two, and we want to see a reduction of at least 90%. If it's less than 90% reduction in the egg count, we know that we are starting to develop or have developed a resistance issue, and we need to switch to a different class of dewormer on our farm or ranch.
Okay, so that's how you overcome the resistance issue, is you really have to have more information to do it intelligently.
Right. You can't deworm your horses and say, well, they look pretty good.
Right.
So it must be working.
Right. Yeah, that's one area where you definitely need the testing. And we're going to talk more about fecal testing in our next session that we do here. But in the meantime, you can find out a ton more information at the website. It's BIMEDA, that's BIMEDA equine.com, BIMEDAequine.com. There's all kinds of great information on there on deworming plans and fecal testing and resistance, just what we talked about. Also, the different types of parasites, and there's a question and answer section on there with Dr. Dave. So you can find out more information on the website at BIMEDAequine.com. Thank you, and we'll talk to you again next month.
Well, that about takes care of it. Thanks again to Dr. Elfson from BIMEDA. You can find links to today's guests, as well as more tips on topics from barn care to websites for horse people at horsetipdaily.com. The Horse Radio Network and the Horse Radio Network hosts are not responsible for statements of guests or their opinions. Use your own judgment when listening to the tips provided by the experts on Horse Tip Daily.